Welcome to the Missionaries Podcast. Stories from the mission field for everyone, for you to listen, learn, and enjoy. Your hosts for today are Martin and Esther.
Welcome everybody to this new podcast. The topic of today is, are you being called? Yeah, are you being called? That's a question that we actually did get when we left to go into the mission field. Are you being called?
As a missionary.
As a missionary. And we thought about a series of podcasts about this. The are you being called is actually a different question than the question, what are you being called to do? That's a more practical thing. So that's more about the place, the time, the country, maybe.
The work.
Yeah. So this first part is only the question, are you being called?
Mm-hmm.
And Esther actually found a great verse in Matthew 28:19 through 20.
And it says there, go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe everything I have commanded you. And remember, I am with you always to the end of the age.
Yeah, I guess everybody who is listening in does know that verse.
Go.
Yeah, it starts with a great word, go. And I guess we also have to agree on that this verse is not only for person A or B, but is a general Bible verse for every Christian.
Mm-hmm.
So if we go back to the question, are you being called?
The answer will be,
Yeah, that there's no other option than that. Are you being called to evangelize? Are you being called to bring the good news of God? Yeah, you are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like, only the pastor is being called to do that on Sunday in the pulpit. No, if you're a Christian, you are called.
Mm-hmm.
I always find it interesting. One of my great hobbies is model trains. Esther starts laughing now. And everybody who wants to know, or I don't care if they want to know, I'll tell them. That's my great passion. That's my great hobby. The same actually goes, way more. That's my wife. I'll tell everybody how great she is, what she does, that I'm proud of her. She fills my heart. And the same goes even beyond that. That's my love for Christ. That's my love for God. That's my love for what the Holy Spirit tells us. So that even goes beyond that. So if you're full of something, how can you not tell?
Mm-hmm. I think you touch a very good point here, because, sometimes I have the idea that a lot of Christians take the suffering and what Jesus did for granted somehow. They understand I was sinful, now Jesus died for me. So he took my sin away and now I can have a relationship with God. But if you really, really, really get the intensity, the heaviness of what Jesus took away from you, I think it should show much more in your life, and you will talk about it much more. Sometimes I have the idea that it's more like, Jesus died for my sin, and and now I have a good life.
Yeah, but that does remind me of the Bible verse that says that you can recognize a tree by its fruit.
Mm-hmm.
And if there ain't no fruit, or even worse, there's rotten fruit. So how can you... If I see a tree that's not bearing fruit, and if I see a person that says I'm a Christian, and there's nothing And he never ever talks about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not any topic. Or even worse, if I look at the person and the behavior of that person is, well, let's just say it's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What sort of tree are we looking at? It always makes me curious. Maybe even worried.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me worry about the tree. How healthy is the tree? There ain't no fruit and or there's only bad fruit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I start to pray my socks off. But it does make me worried. If you're really into model trains, if you're really into your wife, if you're really into God, how can you not tell anybody? For me, that just doesn't... I don't know.
And you also hear people say like, yeah, but you can see in the way I live my life that I'm a Christian. We talked about that as well. I think it's a good start because, yeah, if you have good fruit, people will see the fruit. And people will see like, okay, that sounds good. So I think like a Christian lifestyle is a very good start, but it shouldn't end there. You know, it's like it's the start, making people curious, building relationships, and in a relationship you want to know why is the other person, how he is, what are his thoughts, what are his wishes, what are his longings, and you will get there.
Yeah, well, yeah and no. I mean, you're always curious. So if you meet people along the road, you're always curious. Why do they do what they're doing?
Yeah, that's a hazard of my job, I think.
Yeah, I'm afraid so.
Yeah.
Therapist. Oh man. Yeah, I'm even married to one. But
that's why our marriage is so successful, man.
Thank you, honey. Thank you, honey. So yeah, it's it's part of who you are. You're always curious. If you meet somebody who is having good fruit or even great fruit, you're curious, and you'll definitely ask him, "Hey, how come? Why do you do the things that you do?"
Yeah, but also when I see people struggle, like where does your strength come from? Where does the strength come from to face another day when you're in trouble, when you're having a hard time? What is it that makes you keep going?
Yeah, but in my case, that's different. I mean, if I see people struggle, I will ask them, how do you deal with it? How can you still smile when life is rough? That definitely makes me curious. But if they have a normal life, 2 cars, 2 kids, you know, the average, good job, and they behave normal, they do good things, they take care about the environment, it doesn't make me curious, and I'll never ever ask them, why do you do that? I just take it for granted, I guess.
Okay.
So if that's their way of evangelism, how can I know that it's through God, as in the biblical God, and not a humanity thingy? We should be good for everybody, kumbaya, play the guitar at the campfire. So in my case, if people are saying I'm evangelizing only through being an example by what I do, in my case that wouldn't trigger me to ask the question, why?
Well, the verse in Matthew starts with go. It doesn't say like stay put or keep going the way you're doing. It says go. So go and do something. It's active. It's So you have to see something in their lives.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, it reminds me of the verse in Romans 10:17. Let me look it up. Yeah, there it is. Consequently, faith comes from hearing the message, and the message is heard through the word about Christ. It doesn't say, consequently, faith comes from seeing people doing decent stuff, and the message is heard through people doing decent stuff. It says faith comes from hearing the message, and the message is heard through the word about Christ. So if you want to tell me about Christ, only being a good example, that's not
enough.
not for me.
No.
Not for me. You would be curious.
I will start ask questions.
Yeah, but I don't. I definitely don't. I just take it for granted. I guess it's also a male-female thingy, maybe. I don't know. I just take it for granted and move on. So if somebody is a Christian and would like to tell me about Christ, then he would definitely need to tell me. Get the Bible out. This is who I am. Yeah. So it's not only being a good example, it's being a good example plus.
Yeah.
Is that the conclusion?
I think so.
That's the conclusion. When we were preparing this, we also thought about, when we were ready to go into the mission field for this trip, a lot of people asked, hey, how did you figure out that God called you to go into missions? Well, of course, we went back to Matthew 28 and 19:20. Everybody's being called. I also found a very encouraging Bible verse in Acts 16, verse 1 to 3. Let me try to find... Yeah, there it is. Paul went on to Derbe and Lystra. The pronunciations of those names are always a pain for me. Where there was a disciple named Timothy, the son of a believing Jewish woman, but his father was a Greek. The brothers and sisters at Lystra and Iconium spoke highly of him. Paul wanted Timothy to go with him, so he took him, circumcised him because of the Jews who were in those places, since they all knew that his father was a Greek. I found that a very interesting Bible verse. This is Paul on his way to A and B. He went for a visit or something like that to meet his brothers and sisters in Lystra and Iconium. They spoke highly of Timothy. And Paul thought, you know what? We've got enough to do on the mission field. We're still looking for people. That sounds great. Hey, Timothy, I heard great things about you. Come on and join me.
And it was done. He was called, he went.
And that's it. No writing on the wall, no nothing.
Go.
Yeah. And that for me is always a very encouraging verse. Let's be honest, there's more than enough work to do in the mission field. We're pretty much swamped on our side with all the work that we have to do. Yeah, and if we meet somebody and we hear, that's the thing, there are a couple of things in this verse. It's not that Paul stumbled upon Timothy, thought, well, the hairdo of Timothy looks great, let's take him along.
I like that mohawk, let's go.
Yeah, let's go. That's not what the Bible verse says. I mean, the Bible verse says that the brothers and sisters spoke highly of him. So there was some sort of due diligence. Who is this guy?
Yeah.
Is he okay? Yeah, they spoke highly of him. So I think that's good. don't pick just somebody off the street. Let's go. No.
Mhm.
But that's about it. No writing on a wall. So yeah, everybody's called. Paul met Timothy. Hey Timothy, we've got more than enough to do. Come along. And off they went.
Mhm.
The first time that I read that, I found it quite encouraging, actually.
And why?
I think there are a lot of missionaries who are being asked, are you being called and how are you being called? I've heard, well, it might sound weird. I've heard stories that I think, I don't know. Why don't you just say, hey, listen, I'm a Christian. I want to go for God. I'm ready. I'm eager. Let's go. But no, they came up with all sorts of stories that changed a couple of times. And that always makes me, I don't
Mhm.
know, that's fishy. Why are you not being honest? Why don't you just say, well, hey, God calls everybody.
Mhm.
I'm eager to go. I want to go. And mission organization A or B asked me. They could use some good people. And yeah, that's my calling.
Mhm.
That's good enough.
Mhm.
And this verse gives me... Well, I hope that people who are thinking about going into missions think about this verse. It doesn't need to be a handwriting on the wall.
Mhm.
And if you're in a church and you'll meet somebody in church who says, I want to go into mission,
Mhm.
and they give you an answer, hey, I'm just eager, I just wanted to go, and they ask me,
Mhm.
that's good enough. Stop asking the questions about the handwriting on the wall.
Mhm.
It's that doesn't always happen. So stop asking the question and be glad when somebody says, hey, I'm willing to go. They asked me.
Sometimes I have the feeling that these questions, like what is your calling, why are you called there, how were you called, are also a part of the way the Christian world looks to missionaries. Like I was a missionary in Russia. I came in a church, and for them, I was like, well, being a missionary was like utopia. It was like the highest level you could reach in Christianity. And I was like, yeah, but I'm just like a girl from the Netherlands willing to be here and see what God has for me in store here. So, why am I so high, and why don't people want to talk to me because I am so high in the Christian ladder somehow? And I was like, I'm just a person. Talk to me as like just a person. So these questions like, what is your calling? Why are you called? Where is the letter from God? How did you
Yeah.
receive the
Did you get a phone
calling?
call?
Yeah. Where is the word? It's like it makes it like being a missionary, like what we read in Matthew 28. It's like go. It's like for everyone. If you're God's child, if you believe in Jesus, what he did, then you want to talk about it. You want to go. Why make it such a, I don't know, like a Superman hero-ish thing?
I actually have a hard time with it. You know that? If we go to church every Sunday, there's a moment where we can greet each other. Hey, how are you doing? It's an international church. So everybody is asking, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing in our case in Poland? And if people ask me, hey, what are you doing in Poland? I always say, well, we're volunteers in Poland.
Yeah, do counseling, therapy.
Yeah, counseling, therapy.
Yeah.
That's what we do. Okay, that's interesting. But as soon as I say we're missionaries in Poland,
Yeah.
they start to behave differently.
Yeah. They watch their tongue. They speak different to you.
Yeah.
And that's like,
come on.
we should get rid of that. Like, come on, why?
Well, it's good to have, how do you say that? To have respect for the elders in the church, to have respect for the pastor in the church, to have respect for the missionaries who are in the church. But for me, it very often feels like way, way, way more than just respect.
Mm-hmm.
more like they're treating me as some sort of Holy Mary saint.
Mm-hmm.
And that's false. I'm not the
Yeah.
Holy Mary. I'm not a saint. I
Yeah.
don't want to be a false god.
Mm-hmm.
There's only one God. So if you want to pay the utmost respect for anybody, it's God. It's not me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like you.
Yeah.
So, well, as the listeners can hear, it really pisses me off sometimes. In
Yeah.
all honesty, I don't get it. I hate it. I'm just as anybody else who's being called in Matthew 28, 19, 20. And please, I'm just doing what God does ask anybody to
Yeah.
do. So, yeah, don't raise me up almost beyond God.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it. God is number one.
Yeah.
And I'm number 0.0, and then a lot of zeros and nothing. Yeah. Hey, and then we also have, of course, those things also happen. Then we have the people who actually do get a sign from God, which is very clear.
Yeah. We've got an example of that.
Yeah,
Like-
you found one, huh?
Yeah, and it's like just a little bit on. Paul goes with Timothy, and then in the same chapter, Acts 16, just a few verses on, 6 to 10, Paul and his companies traveled throughout the region of, Phrygia,
Yeah, I know those
and
names.
Galatia, having been kept by the Holy Spirit from preaching the word in the province of Asia. When they came to the border of Mysia, they tried to enter Bithynia, but the Spirit of Jesus would not allow them to. So they passed by Mysia and went down to Troas. During the night, Paul had a vision of a man of Macedonia standing and begging him, "Come over to Macedonia and help us." After Paul had seen the vision, we got ready at once to leave for Macedonia, concluding that God had called us to preach the gospel to them.
That's a great passage.
I love this because it shows like being missionaries it's not a static thing. You know, like Timothy goes with Paul, like Paul has a plan. We're going to go there, then we're going to go there, then we're going to go there, and we're going to help the people, we're going to preach. Timothy is like, yeah, sure, go. And then they go off. And what happens? No, first location, it's not going to happen. Okay, so we are pivoting into a new plan. So we go to plan B. And then, no, it's not going to happen. Then God gives a dream and we go to plan C. And yeah, that plan is happening. So, like, for me, this is so encouraging because God has a plan and you can make plans, but God has a very different view. He's so much larger than we are. He can overview much more than we can. And he knows what's needed where, and he is sending them to somewhere else. And they are listening and they are going. So yeah, you can go like, I am being called for this country, for this job in this city with these people. And you get there and things change. So what do? You know, it's like also following God's leading you.
Yeah, well, in this case, I mean, the calling Paul heard from the Holy Spirit, do go or don't go or change your plans.
Mm-hmm.
So in this case, it's very clear to Paul, go left or right. I wonder how would the supporters of Paul
Yeah.
respond to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, dear Paul, we just gave you new slippers to travel to Phrygia and Galatia. And you just call us and you're telling us that the Holy Spirit told that you're not going there, you're going somewhere way different.
Yeah, and the next day he's calling them again.
Yeah.
Sorry, this plan also is not working. I have now a dream. We go to Macedonia. So
Yeah, but we booked you a plane, boat, slipper ticket to...
Slipper tickets.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty terrible, huh? We booked you a ticket to A or B. You had a whole
Mhm.
presentation in church that you were going there.
Yeah.
You said, this is what I heard from God and I have to go there.
Yeah. So are you sure that it was God's calling that you had? I mean, you told us you were called to go there, and now you're going somewhere else.
How would we respond today? I'm not sure if we... I'm not sure.
We would have big questions mark at Paul.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the funding would definitely be gone.
Uh-huh.
No funding for you, brother. You better buy your own shoes, slippers, whatsoever the next time. But
Well, he just got new ones, so he can
yeah, you can
travel on them for a while. But
he still has some funding left. But
yeah.
I wonder how we would deal with that. And the same goes with if somebody wants to go to the mission field. This is a great example. For one or the other reason, I always have the feeling that if people say in church, hey, I want to go to the mission field and do whatever,
Mm-hmm.
that we almost cross-examine them. Where's the sign? Can you give me an extract of the phone call God gave you?
Mm-hmm.
Can you make a copy of that so I can see it?
Yeah. What is your calling exactly?
Yeah,
Can you put it in writing?
yeah, for 110%, please.
Mhm.
And this Bible verse is actually encouraging.
It is.
God calls you, as it says in Matthew 28, 19, 20. Go. And God will show you where you have to go.
And that's what he says in Matthew 28 as well. Like, I will be with you. Remember, I am with you always to the end of the age. So Jesus already kind of knew, like, you go, life happens, changes happen, situations change. But he is with us. He is with you. So if he says no, then it's no. Then you
Yeah.
try something else. And that's no. Okay, so that was not the option. So let's try something else. God gave me a hint. Okay, let's go there. And yes, it works out.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess for people who... Well, if we read it in the Bible these days, I guess we're just reading it. Okay, this happened. But if this would have happened today in church, I think that's a whole other ballgame.
Yeah.
Not only for the church itself, who says, hey, you told me a great story about your calling, but that changed. But also for the missionary. And for the missionary, if plans do change, don't worry. And remember, I'm with you always to the end of
Mhm.
the age.
And I think it touches again what we talked about, like, because somehow missionaries in church are like high-level Christians or something. Like, you have to have this very specific calling to go there and do that. And when that doesn't happen, or when things change, we are concluding like, oh, then you probably haven't heard God's voice right. Instead of, no matter what, like, you follow God and you go where you need to go. So that's like, if we could change the thinking about how holy missionaries are, how that they're just also just like normal people following their Lord wherever they go, the same as the people who are not going to another country but go in their own country, in their own environment. They are as much called as the people who travel. So if we could change the mindset there, God would have much more freedom actually to use everyone, I think, because we are like pinpointing people.
Yeah, and it will also give potential missionaries and missionaries a lot more godly freedom, I guess.
Yeah. Trust God and trust the people who are willing to step out of their comfort zone in following Christ, wherever that is, however that is.
Yeah, and as we said, this is not just for person A or B, but this is for every Christian. Yeah, and with that we come to the end of this podcast. next time we're going to talk about more specifically, what are you called to do? So not the question, are you being called, but what specifically does God call you to do? But well, the verses from Acts 16, 6 through 10 already says a little bit about that, but we'll talk about that next time. And we want to say thank you for all the people who are listening in. Please do like, subscribe, follow, or whatever, and talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Missionaries Podcast. For more information about this podcast and how you can help us, visit www.emmy.pl. God bless, and keep up the great work for His glory.